What if I told you that one of Australia's most unlikely engines once sent shockwaves through General Motors headquarters? Not a flashy V8, not even a supercar engine, but a humble inline-six that became a quiet threat to GM's global hierarchy. This was the Holden 202, a power plant born in Melbourne, yet treated like an outcast in Detroit. Beneath the bonnet of everyday Holdens lay a mechanical breakthrough that could have changed the global automotive order, but instead was deliberately suppressed and almost erased from history. The story begins in 1963, when Holden introduced the 138 cubic inch red motor in the EH series. Unlike the big, brash V8s dominating America, Holden's approach was rooted in practicality, engines designed to survive Australia's brutal climate and long distances. Over the decade, the red motor evolved steadily, 149, 161, then 173 cubic inches, each step refining reliability and performance. But in 1969 came a true milestone, the 202 cubic inch 3.3-liter version. Under the guidance of engineer Ian Tate and his team, Holden managed something remarkable. They increased displacement without enlarging the block. By using thinner yet stronger cylinder walls thanks to advanced metallurgy, Holden kept the same external dimensions while delivering a bigger, more powerful engine. What seemed like a clever local engineering achievement soon drew unwanted attention from Detroit. When Holden sent vehicles fitted with the 202 to the United States for evaluation, the results were startling. The little Aussie inline-six proved not only durable, but in some stress and fuel efficiency tests, actually outperformed certain American V8s. For GM executives in Detroit, this was deeply unsettling. A division they considered regional was now producing engines that threatened to embarrass the flagship products of the corporation. From that point, decisions were made not to promote the 202, but to limit it. Export plans were shelved, high-performance variants were cut back, and the engine's reputation was quietly undermined. The Holden 202, once a symbol of Australian ingenuity, was systematically kept in the shadows to protect GM's larger global strategy. On paper, the 202 didn't look like a giant killer, around 135 horsepower from its 3.3 liters. But under the surface, it was built like no other inline-six of its era. It featured a 7-main bearing bottom end, far stronger than the 4-bearing designs used by many rivals. This gave the crankshaft incredible stability at higher RPMs, making the block a favorite among performance tuners. Its cylinder walls were thick enough to allow significant overboring, often beyond 230 cubic inches, without losing strength. The head design, too, was impressive, with port geometry that delivered airflow figures surprisingly advanced for the late 1960s, long before computer modeling was available. These qualities made it an underground legend, but also a political problem. GM deliberately restricted its potential. Intake manifolds were narrowed, camshafts detuned, and official output capped at under 140 horsepower. Yet dyno tests consistently showed the 202 could easily reach 170 to 180 horsepower with only minor tuning. Evidence also suggests production tolerances were intentionally loosened, causing inconsistency in performance from one batch to another, a tactic that diluted its reputation as a serious performance contender. In the end, the Holden 202 was never allowed to reach its full potential. It remained a strong, reliable engine beloved by Australian enthusiasts, but the truth is that it could have been much more. It wasn't engineering that limited the 202, it was corporate politics, with GM ensuring the Australian inline-six would never overshadow its American-built V8s.
In 1974, Holden proposed something that could have made Australia a technological leader inside General Motors, a fuel-injected version of the 202. Electronic fuel injection at that time was still cutting edge, yet Holden engineers were ready to bring it to market. The project, however, never went beyond the boardroom. After just one executive meeting, it was canceled. The official excuse was poor market conditions, but in reality, it was another step in Detroit's effort to keep the 202 from becoming too advanced. Meanwhile, on the racetrack, the truth about the engine's hidden potential was becoming impossible to suppress. In the early 1970s, while big V8 still dominated, privateer racing teams began experimenting with the 202. With only a handful of modifications, this ordinary six-cylinder transformed into a genuine competitor. Peter Brock, who would go on to become one of Australia's most celebrated racing legends, proved the point with his Tirana. By fitting the 202 with triple SU carburetors, he pushed output close to 240 horsepower, nearly double GM's official rating of 135. The defining moment came at the 1972 Bathurst 500. In wet and challenging conditions, Harry Firth's Holden Tirana GTR XU1, powered by the 202, defeated several larger V8s and took a stunning victory. News of this result didn't just stay in Australia, it quickly reached Detroit. Instead of celebrating the engineering triumph, GM responded by pushing for rule changes. Smaller, efficient engines like the 202 were burdened with added weight or restrictive configurations designed to keep them from overshadowing the V8s. And yet, even under these limitations, the 202 continued to win races, forcing everyone, including GM, to acknowledge its strength. The more the 202 succeeded, the greater the resistance from within GM. When 320 Holden vehicles equipped with the 202 were shipped to Michigan in 1971 for internal testing, the results rattled executives. A retired GM engineer later admitted that in real-world trials, the Australian six-cylinder outperformed several V8s in both durability and fuel efficiency. This was a serious problem for Detroit, which had already invested heavily in V8 development across North America and Europe. They couldn't afford for a relatively small engine from Australia to undermine their global strategy. A leaked memo from 1972 outlined GM's solution. The Holden 202 would be regionalized. That meant no expansion into international markets, no advanced upgrades, and certainly no exports beyond Australia and New Zealand. The electronic fuel injection project was killed. High-performance packages were discontinued. Even Holden's ambitions to send the 202 into international touring competitions were quietly blocked. On paper, the 202 was just another local engine. In reality, it had been deliberately contained. Yet while GM worked to bury the engine's future, car enthusiasts began preserving its legacy. Across Australia, mechanics and hobbyists recognized the 202's potential and kept it alive in workshops and garages. Over time, its reputation spread overseas. Collectors in Japan, Germany, and even the United States began hunting for original 202 blocks. What once was a cheap, overlooked engine gradually turned into a valuable piece of mechanical history. Today, a numbers-matching 202 block can sell for over $8,000, and the rare double blue stripe versions from late 1972 have reached more than $12,000 at auctions. The Holden 202 community remains fiercely passionate. Much of its knowledge and technical expertise is shared through private forums, underground groups, and specialist workshops. Many of the most dedicated fans aren't even Australian, proof of how far the legend of the 202 has traveled. For these enthusiasts, the engine isn't just a collectible. It's a foundation of learning, a mechanical textbook that demonstrates engineering principles still relevant today. The engine's 7-main bearing bottom end, once seen as excessive, is now praised for its robustness. Modern inline-six designs from other manufacturers echo elements of the 202's construction. The aftermarket has also kept the engine alive, with companies like Yellowterra, Wade Engineering, and Ice Ignition still producing high-performance heads, camshafts, and ignition systems specifically for it. Despite production ending decades ago, the 202 remains at the center of a thriving performance scene. Even more remarkable is the engine's role in hot rod and custom builds worldwide. From Japanese tuners to American restorers, the Holden 202 has found a home far beyond the borders of Australia. For many, it represents the spirit of a golden era in automotive history: simple, reliable, endlessly tunable, and full of character. Ultimately, the Holden 202 isn't just an engine. It's a mechanical declaration from Australia, a symbol of innovation that was suppressed by corporate politics but kept alive by enthusiasts around the world. From Melbourne's engineering labs to the victory at Bathurst, from suburban garages to global custom shows, the 202 has walked a path that few engines ever do. It is proof that great engineering can't be silenced, and true passion never fades.